Chapter 1. The Whispering Ashes. The Executor loomed in the darkness of space, its massive form a shadow against the stars. Inside, the bridge was silent, save for the rhythmic breathing of Darth Vader. Officers kept their distance, their movements tense, their eyes lowered. None wished to draw his attention, especially not tonight. Vader's mind was restless. Something stirred in the Force. For weeks, an anomaly had been disrupting hyperspace routes near Mustafar. Scouts reported phantom signals, distorted voices whispering in the static, ghostly presences flickering across sensors. Yet when ships arrived to investigate, they found nothing but the choking heat and volcanic ruin of the Sith Lord's cursed birthplace. The whispers had reached Vader. They had not spoken to him in words, but in memories. Raw, agonizing echoes of his past self. The snap hiss of a green lightsaber, the scent of burning flesh, the feeling of his body sinking into molten fire. Vader did not believe in spirits, and yet he felt them. "Commander Jarek," his voice cut through the silence. A young Imperial officer stiffened. "Yes, Lord Vader, set a course for Mustafar." The bridge went deathly still. "My lord," Jarek hesitated. "Surely you do not wish to." Vader turned. A deep, mechanical inhale. His black mask seemed to drink the light from the room. "I do not repeat myself." Jarek swallowed, nodded, and hurried to relay the order. The Executor banked, its engines roaring to life, as the ghosts of Mustafar called Vader home. The lava world burned beneath him. Vader stood at the mouth of his fortress, the obsidian tower rising against the eternal inferno. The wind howled through the jagged cliffs, carrying with it the whispers. He had felt them since he arrived. Something was here. Vader did not fear death. He was death. And yet this presence, it was not the Force. It was something else. A shadow moved in the heat haze. Vader turned sharply. Nothing. Just the shifting light of lava flows. A trick of the mind, or so he thought. As he stepped inside the fortress, the whispers grew louder. They hissed, laughed, and in the depths of the corridors, something waited for him. Chapter 2. The Phantom in the Dark. The air inside Fortress Vader was thick, oppressive. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, moving as if alive. The temperature was suffocating, yet Vader felt a deeper coldness creeping beneath his armor. He did not need light. His vision adjusted through the red tint of his HUD, scanning for movement. The corridors were wrong. He had walked these halls before, yet now they felt unfamiliar, as though something had shifted in his absence. Then a whisper, not in his mind, not in the Force, a whisper from the darkness. Skywalker. Vader's breathing hitched. No one had called him that in years. Not since he turned. A shadow flickered at the edge of his vision. A figure standing at the end of the corridor. It was blurry, shifting, half-formed, as if caught between worlds. Vader strode forward, his fist tightening, his breathing deep and deliberate. "Who are you?" The figure twitched. "You let me die." Vader froze. His mechanical fingers curled inward, trembling with something close to rage or fear. No, this was a trick, a Jedi deception. He reached for his lightsaber. The figure lurched forward, its form stretching, becoming something unnatural. Then it screamed. Not a human scream, not even a Jedi's. It was something deeper, something torn from the void between death and life. The walls shook. Vader's HUD flickered, static crawling across his vision. And in that blinding, agonizing moment, he saw himself. His own burning body writhing in the flames of Mustafar, the charred remains of his arms reaching up for mercy, and standing over him Obi-Wan. But it was not Obi-Wan, not truly. His face was melted, his robes burned away, and his eyes, they were hollow, empty, dead. "You killed me, Anakin." Vader's rage exploded. With a single motion, his lightsaber ignited, its crimson glow slicing through the darkness. But when he swung, there was nothing there. Only silence. Only the sound of his own heavy breathing. Only the realization that he was not alone in this fortress anymore. Chapter 3. The Dead Speak. The halls of Vader's fortress pulsed with something ancient, something that should not exist. The Sith Lord had felt fear before, but never like this. The whispers had turned into laughter, mocking, hateful, familiar. He moved deeper into the fortress, each step bringing him closer to the source of the presence. His rage kept him steady, but beneath it, something boiled beneath his metal and flesh. Something that felt like dread. The chamber doors ahead of him groaned open. The throne room. And there, standing before his obsidian throne, was Padme Amidala, or what was left of her. Her face was pale, hollow, her eyes sunken with the weight of death itself. Her voice was like cracking glass. "Anakin, why did you kill me?" To be continued. Chapter 4, The Corpse of Padme. "Anakin, why did you kill me?" The words slithered into Vader's mind like a dagger, twisting deep, burrowing into wounds that had never truly healed. His breath hitched, the mechanical rasp of his respirator faltering for a fraction of a second. Padme stood before him, a phantom wrapped in death. Her once radiant brown eyes now sunken, clouded with decay. Her hair, once braided in elegance, hung in matted clumps streaked with dried blood. This was not her. This was not real. "Your tricks do not fool me," Vader growled, his crimson saber igniting, its glow casting shadows that crawled across the chamber walls. Padme's lips curled into a sad, broken smile. "I loved you, Anakin. I carried your children, and you left me to die." The temperature in the room plummeted. Vader's breath became visible, curling in the freezing air. The fortress trembled, as though Mustafar itself recoiled at the presence of whatever had wormed its way inside. Padme took a step forward. The sound was wrong, a wet, rotting squelch. Then Vader saw it, the gaping hole in her stomach. Her regal dress was soaked in blackened blood, a wound torn through her abdomen where life had once thrived. And yet, she still stood, still walked toward him. "Anakin, come back to me." The words were not a plea, they were a command. Vader struck. His saber tore through her chest, the red light illuminating her hollow eyes. But she did not fall. She laughed. A wretched, inhuman sound, the echoes of it bouncing through the throne room like a chorus of the damned. Vader's fingers tightened around his saber hilt, but a terrible force wrenched it from his grasp, sending it spinning across the room. The laughter became many voices. Skywalker, traitor, murderer, father. The chamber was filled with shadows, their forms shifting, flickering between the people he had killed. Jedi younglings with empty, bleeding sockets for eyes. Mace Windu, his skull caved inward, broken and twisted. Obi-Wan, his body still burning, mouth twisted in silent agony. And Padme, whispering through the chaos, "Come home to me, Anakin." The shadows lunged. Vader roared as they tore into him, the darkness wrapping around his limbs, dragging him down into a void that should not exist. And in that moment, for the first time since Mustafar, Darth Vader felt like he was dying again. Chapter 5, Beneath the Fortress. Darkness. For what felt like an eternity, there was nothing but suffocating blackness pressing against Vader like a tomb. His body, or what was left of it, floated in the void. Then a voice. "You were never meant to survive, Skywalker." The darkness shattered. Vader awoke, gasping, his breath ragged even through the respirator. He was no longer in the throne room. He was somewhere else. The walls were slick, pulsing, as if the fortress itself had transformed into something alive. A deep, guttural heartbeat thrummed through the stone, vibrating through his armor. Vader rose to his feet. His lightsaber was gone. The air smelled wrong, like burnt flesh and wet decay. This was not his fortress anymore. This was something else. Somewhere in the darkness, something breathed. He turned sharply, and then he saw them. Hanging from the ceiling, suspended by veins of black tendrils, were bodies. Hundreds of them. Some were stormtroopers, their armor cracked, their faces frozen in silent screams. Others were Jedi, still in their robes, lifeless but not rotting. They were preserved. And then his heart stopped, because among the bodies was himself. A broken, burning corpse, tangled in tendrils, its charred skull still wearing the tattered remains of his Jedi robes. His own empty eye sockets stared down at him. Vader's rage exploded. Enough! His will surged outward in the Force, shattering the tendrils, ripping the bodies from the ceiling. The fortress screamed around him, the walls quaking, the unseen entity that plagued him thrashing in fury. Then, a voice deeper than the void filled the chamber. Do you think you command this place, Darth Vader? The fortress laughed, a guttural, unnatural chorus of voices, all speaking as one. You were created here. You will die here. The walls split open, revealing a massive chasm-like mouth, its fangs dripping with molten lava, its insides pulsating with shadows. And from within it, something began to crawl out. Something wearing a mask identical to his, a blackened mirror of Darth Vader himself. And as it rose to its full height, its burning red eyes locked onto him, the fortress shuddered with its final echoing words, "Face yourself, Anakin Skywalker." To be continued. Chapter 6. The Abyss Stares Back. The thing standing before him was him, yet it was not. It wore his armor, but it was twisted, grotesque. The black durasteel warped and jagged, as though it had been reforged in hell itself. Its mask was cracked down the middle, revealing something shifting beneath, something alive. The air trembled around it. Vader ignited his saber, the red glow washing over the monstrosity's blackened form. The thing did the same, but its blade was not red. It was sickly, unnatural, a flickering, pulsing mass of black fire. Vader did not hesitate. He lunged, his blade slicing through the air, a strike meant to end this abomination instantly. But the thing matched him perfectly. Sparks screamed as their sabers clashed. Vader pushed forward, but his double pushed back with equal strength. Then it spoke. "You cannot kill what you already are." The words hit him like a blow. The voice was his own. The fortress shook, the walls splitting open to reveal endless darkness, chasm after chasm stretching into the void. Vader roared in fury. He was not Anakin Skywalker. He was Darth Vader. He swung again and again, each strike meeting its perfect twin, as though the thing knew every movement before he made it. The realization crawled up his spine. It didn't know, because it was him. And then it changed. The armor peeled away, flesh burning and twisting, reforming into a charred, skinless version of Anakin Skywalker. The thing dropped its saber, and it smiled. Then it spoke with Obi-Wan's voice. "You were my brother, Anakin." Vader froze, and in that moment, it struck. A black hand plunged into his chest, tearing through his armor like it was nothing. Pain, unlike anything he had felt since Mustafar racked his body. The thing leaned close. Its voice was all of them at once. Obi-Wan, Padme, the Jedi, the Sith, even the Emperor himself. "You do not own this body. You do not own this mind. You are a corpse pretending to be a man." The world collapsed inward. The darkness swallowed him whole, and Darth Vader screamed. Chapter 7. Trapped in the Tomb. Vader awoke, gasping. For a brief, terrible moment, he was convinced he had no armor, that he was still the broken, burning corpse on Mustafar, left to rot in agony. But no, he was still in his suit. His limbs ached, but they still functioned. Barely. The chamber around him had changed. It was no longer the twisting, living fortress. It was a tomb. Black stone walls lined with ancient Sith carvings whispered to him in the dark. He recognized the language. Words of pain, suffering, eternal torment. At the center of the room was a single object, a mirror. But not just any mirror. It was wrong. Its frame was made of obsidian bone, and its surface was not glass. It was liquid, shifting, writhing like something alive. And deep within it, his own reflection stared back at him. But it was not him. It was Anakin Skywalker, whole, unscarred. This is what you were. Vader's breathing deepened. Look at what you lost. The reflection tilted its head. You can still go back. Lies, lies. Vader's rage ignited. He threw out his hand, summoning the Force, ready to shatter the mirror into dust. But instead, it pulled him inside. Chapter 8. The Life That Wasn't. Vader landed somewhere else. Somewhere impossible. The air was warm. The twin suns of Tatooine burned overhead. The wind carried the scent of sand, of moisture farmers tending to their crops. And then he saw it, a small homestead, a place he had never lived but somehow knew, and standing at the doorway was Padme, alive, holding the hands of two small children. "Anakin, you're home," she called, her voice full of warmth. The two children, Luke and Leia, ran toward him, laughing, their faces beaming with joy. Vader stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. No, this isn't real. But the warmth of the sun, the laughter, the feeling of her arms wrapping around him, it all felt so real. "Come inside, love," Padme whispered, resting her head against his chest. "Come home." For a moment, just a moment, Darth Vader forgot who he was. Had Chapter 9, The Choice. He sat at the dinner table. Padme laughed. Luke and Leia played. The food was warm, filling. For the first time in decades, there was peace. But it was wrong. Somewhere deep inside, Vader felt it. He turned to Padme. "Is this real?" he asked. Her smile faltered. For the briefest second, her eyes darkened. "Why does it matter?" A chill ran through Vader's spine. The walls of the home rippled like a stone dropped in water. He turned to the children. Their faces were wrong now, stretched, smiling too wide. "Stay here," Padme whispered, her voice shifting. "Stay forever." Vader's hands shook. Then, in the window's reflection, he saw himself. Not as Anakin, not as a father, but as Darth Vader. A monster. A lie. He stood. No. Padme's face twisted in fury. The children's eyes turned black. The house began to dissolve, revealing the endless abyss beneath it. And then, she lunged at him. But this time, Vader was ready. With a burst of pure, seething will, he tore through the illusion, the force shattering the dream like glass. And suddenly, he was back in the fortress. The mirror was gone, and in its place, the true enemy stood before him. Chapter 10, The Dark Lord Rises. The entity was not Sith, not Jedi, not even of this galaxy. It was something older, something hungry. You could have stayed. You could have been whole again. Vader lifted his hand. "I was never whole." The force erupted from him in a single, devastating wave. The fortress collapsed. The entity screamed as it was ripped apart, its essence banished into the void. And as the rubble settled, Vader stood alone, unbroken. The whispers were gone. The ghosts were silent. He turned, walking away as the ashes of Mustafar rose around him. And in the dark, Darth Vader remained. The nightmare had ended, but he would never wake up. The end.